Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we have entered day 162. Yes, day 162 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And before we deep dive into the tactical map and have a overall look at the strategic situation in the ongoing conflict, we're going to talk about some recent political events and some recent events that are occurring inside of Ukraine that are being caused by the war. And going into this conflict, obviously, Ukraine considered itself a democracy. Now, as we've entered day 162, I think at least some individuals would be reassessing that Ukrainian democracy. And we have seen Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, enact measures because of the war, such as eliminating certain opposition groups, where essentially Zelensky does not have any political opposition to speak of at this time. And again, for a democracy, that can be dangerous. And when you have that kind of power and you eliminate various opposition groups, you then are able to do certain things that those opposition groups may raise holy hell about. And one example that we're now seeing is Ukraine is now letting prisoners out of prison to fight in some of these so-called hot areas of the ongoing battlescape. Some of these prisoners have been convicted of rape, murder, torture, sodomy, and it really runs the gambit. So I would only think if the United States was in some sort of conflict and we started to take prisoner volunteers who were convicted of various heinous acts towards society, and then allowed those individuals to fight for one's country. Here in the United States, once you are a felon, you no longer have the right to vote, and I'm not sure what that looks like for Ukraine. It may be a little different. I have not deep dived into that element as of yet, but right now we do know that several individuals, some of which, what was the guy's name? Ruslan Onashenko or something like that. So he was a leading member of the Tornado Battalion, and this unit has a history in the war prior to what is happening now, and then obviously other known convicted criminals with some lengthy sentences in excess of a decade in prison are now being released to fight for the Ukrainian military. So probably some mixed feelings on that. I would imagine in Ukrainian society, some folks are probably saying, well, wait a minute, let's apply the brakes here. Now, problem is when you eliminate opposition groups and you crack down on opposition under the guise of, hey, you are a Russian supporter, well, you got a free hand to do a lot of things you may not ordinarily be able to do. So we're going to continue to watch this very, very closely and see what comes of it. Obviously, there will be more information soon. In other news, we are starting to hear information from the Ukrainian side, and this is very interesting. So just a few days ago, we were talking about the possibility of a Ukrainian counteroffensive that was going to drive Russian forces from the western bank of the Dnieper River. Now, certain sources in the Ukrainian military are now saying that the Russians could be preparing for a counterattack or a counteroffensive or a renewed offensive operation, depending on how you want to look at it, towards the major city of Kryvyi Rih, and that is this locale here. I highly, highly, highly doubt that we are going to see a major Russian offensive operation towards Kryvyi Rih, and I'm not sure why. The Ukrainian defense ministry is is stating that. Obviously, I don't believe at this point Russia has moved adequate combat power to launch an operation towards Kryvyi Rih. I think the Russians right now are looking to wrap things up in the east as opposed to taking more areas right now on the western bank of the Dnieper River. And if you look at Kryvyi Rih, it's a difficult nut to crack given the size of the city. It's a very expansive city. It is not a dense city, but an expansive city with large urban sprawling areas over a very wide area. I think it's one of the longest cities, probably the longest in terms of size in Ukraine. Not density in terms of population, but just the expansiveness of the urban areas of Kryvyi Rih. So, and it's separated by terrain features such as rivers and what have you, and just a operation at this point. I don't believe the Russians are ready to launch. But it's interesting that that in terms of the Ukrainian side, talking about this offensive operation that would take place on the western bank, and now we're talking about a possible Russian offensive operation. So really convoluted information coming out of the Ukrainian side, and that could be intentional. It could be a way of creating distractions and ongoing propaganda for its ongoing war efforts. And who's to say, maybe the initial stages of the Ukrainian counteroffensive towards Kherson and in the east may have bogged down and is probably not going to plan at this point. We have not seen the Ukrainians gain further territory on the western bank of the Dnieper River. And again, I don't believe the Russians are going to allow the Ukrainians to retake this area through a military force. The Russians are going to apply all combat power available to prevent the loss of Kherson and this western footprint on the western bank of the Dnieper River. Ongoing fighting continues in the east as well. We're continuing to see this continued Russian offensive taking place towards Bakhmut and other areas as well. We continue to see Russian forces again using massive amounts of heavy artillery pressing towards Bakhmut and other areas in the east. And what I'll do is here we'll just kind of back off where you, the viewer, can kind of see what's happened over the last several days and week. And we'll just we're at July 25th, and you can clearly see kind of what the Russians are up to and why they're doing what they're doing, because they're clearly set on moving towards Bakhmut and then ultimately towards Kramatorsk and then possibly Sloviansk as well. Furthermore, in the northwest area quadrant of the ongoing war, we are seeing limited Russian operations towards Kharkov as well. They are moving to the southeast of Kharkov. They could be trying to press up again and get behind Kharkov at some point. And again, they continue to position forces in this area for a possible renewed offensive push. Again, I don't believe it's going to be an all-out attack on Kharkov. Again, they're going to need to marshal a lot more forces and probably move forces from the Sloviansk, Kramatorsk area of operations in order to complete said objectives if they do plan on taking Kharkov at some point, which, as I talked about before in other videos, I don't see the Russians ending this operation without taking Kharkov. If the Russians walk away from this war effort without taking that. I think it was one of the primary goals of Russian forces to seize control of that city, and ultimately they probably still have that city in its sights. They just need to wrap things up in the Donetsk region first, and then they'll move on to other objectives. Now, depending on how that looks, it's difficult to actually say, but we're going to continue to monitor and report and watch what's happening, especially on the western bank of the Dnieper River, and we'll continue to watch what is happening in the east as well. Not a lot of territory moves, but that does not say that fighting is still very intense and very heavy. We continue to see this methodical Russian operation of using massive amounts of artillery and continuing this monotonous attack against Ukrainian forces. More to come later. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.